for my final project, I've decided to go and research stuff about sleep and how it affects us and how we can potentially gain more from it. And yeah. So why did I choose this topic in the first place? I was already researching about this before my final project, and lately I've just been having a terrible time trying to sleep, and just a horrible sleeping schedule in general. And I told my guide about it, and they said that I should look into getting a sound machine, and I had no idea what a sound machine was, but I wasn't really picky, so I looked into sound machines online to see how it may help your sleep, and it didn't really explain. Yeah, people just said, like, this works, you should try it. And I said no, and I did more research, and that sort of delved into learning more about what sleep is. So there. My first main question, which I looked into, is basically what is sound, or like the most common types of sound people related with sound machines, because that didn't make sense. And there was a lot of sounds, but I'll get into the most common. And white noise was actually the most common. And basically, it's most of the artificial stuff that you might hear and find relaxing. So like fans, dryers, heaters, washing machines, other things that you might like. I don't know. I'm sure there's more. And it's basically a variation of multiple other sounds, and normally used to blur out background noises and to protect your ears. So it's fascinating. And another very common noise that I found mentioned was pink noise, and it's very similar to white noise in terms of their frequency. It's just that pink noise happens to have a lower pitch, which doesn't really matter, but still. And it's usually heard in natural stuff like ocean waves or rainfall or wind or stuff. And it's normally used to help relax people or to help them stay focused. And yeah. So basically afterwards, I had a general grasp of what sound is, but I still don't really understand. Like, was getting a sound machine really worth it in the end, and why is this connected? And I looked further into what sleep is, so perhaps find a better connection. And so yeah, the first thing that I looked into was the literal definition for what sleep meant, because saying sleep is like when you knock out or just die for a few hours and then wake up again. It just doesn't sound very professional. So yeah, I found a medical definition from this cool site, howsleepworks.com, Stedman's Medical Dictionary. And yeah, I'll let you read this statement. It's very long, though. Basically, what it means is just that it means you pass out for a while and your brain stays active. So, yeah. So I looked further into it, and there's actual defined medical stages of sleep, which I found really interesting. And the first stage 1 is light sleep, which I feel like most of us already know this. It's basically a cat nap or just resting your eyes for a bit, and this stage lasts for around 5 to 10 minutes, depending on who you are. And you start to relax, your brainwave frequencies start to lower down, muscles just relax, and you might get a couple jerks because your body's just trying to lower down and it's confused. So yeah. And then stage 2, and there wasn't really an official name for it, so I named it deeper light sleep. I don't know. I'm not good at names. So this is basically kind of like a cat nap, but it just lasted longer than you wanted it to, kind of situation. And it lasts for roughly 20 minutes for the sleeping period. And this is when your breathing and heartbeat start actually slowing down, your muscles relax even further, your body temperature drops, and your eyes kind of stop moving. And you get these cool little things, which I will talk about later. Brief bursts of electrical activity, otherwise known as spindles, occur. And you kind of can kind of think of them like little farts happening in your brain. Yeah, it's really cute, huh? And yeah. And then there's stage 3, known as delta sleep, or what we might know as deep sleep. And I thought that this stage was the very most interesting. And so scientists nicknamed this as delta sleep for the little delta waves that are produced in deep sleep, which are the smallest waves that your brain makes when you're napping. And it's really cool. And yeah, nothing really can wake you up during this stage. You are dead to the world. Your heart rate and your breathing are slowed down considerably, and your body is just very still. And this lasts for roughly 90 minutes. This depends on who you are, how much sleep you need. Yeah. And then there's REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep. And a lot of the sites I looked into actually called REM sleep as stage 4 of sleeping, but I decided to keep it separate because I've learned that REM sleep can happen in stage 2 and 3. So that didn't make sense. And yeah. So this stage roughly lasts for 2 to 3 hours of your total sleeping time. And this is when your body is basically crazy out of all the other stages. Your brain is highly active, your eyes are moving rapidly, your body is paralyzed, but your muscles are still contracting like crazy, and your breathing and your heart rate are really uncontrolled. It's very concerning when they explain this on the health websites. And yeah, this is also when your dreams occur, which is very interesting. Yeah. A little note I added to the side is that while these are theories, I couldn't really find evidence. People have claimed that REM sleep is responsible for regenerating and repairing broken cells in your body that you have used throughout the day. And there's also another theory where it's the most important part of to have REM sleep to re-energize yourself from actually taking a nap, but I think that's wrong, since I've heard that you need all the stages that you sleep in to actually make it work, because if you don't have one, you don't get none kind of situation, I'm sure. Yeah. If you don't get any sleep, there's a huge risk of damaging your organs and suffering through illnesses, and the main concerns being various heart diseases and high blood pressure. And yeah, don't want that. It's also another note, I keep adding notes, these stages don't happen in order like what I showed. They may not happen completely, or they may happen multiple times. That's fairly normal. So yeah. Next part. Cool definitions that I thought was very interesting to know, but you don't have to remember them. I won't be mad if you don't. The first one, circadian rhythm. This is not a real picture of it. Please don't think it is. It's your body's natural sleeping clock, basically, and it tells you when it's time to go nap. And the main things that might affect this, for this to happen: your metabolism, for one, your temperature, various hormones, environmental cues. I'm sure there's more, but I did not learn more. Another thing that I found related to the clock is called the Sleepwake homeostasis, basically otherwise known as how much sleep do you need tracker. And this is basically that feeling of the intensity and of how much sleep you feel like you need during that night. And a lot of things can affect this. Mostly it's medicine and other medical issues. Stress and environmental cues can also be greatly affected by this. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and now I have a good grasp of what sound is about, and just the general medical stuff that sleep does for us. And I'm still very curious though, just about the sound itself actually benefits sleeping behavior, because there's no real connection I've seen so far. Is there any evidence besides for people on online blogs just stating that ASMR and sound machines work and you should try it? And yeah, I found this cool article, study article that talks a bit about that. So it's called the mind-wandering alterations to default mode network connectivity when listening to naturalistic versus artificial sounds, made during March 27, 2017 by Cassandra D. Gould? I don't know. From England. And basically it's just saying why sounds affects our brains the way that they do, specifically natural sounds. And yeah, here's some data stuff on that. They did a study on 17 adults, and each one basically had to listen to a variety of natural and artificial sounds for around 5 minutes, while also checking their performance and reaction time to see how relaxed they were. And throughout the study, they learned that depending on the sound a person is listening to can greatly affect what we know as the fight or flight response, and changes our brain's default mode network. And yeah, natural sounds, specifically ones that we are familiar with, and various artificial sounds can decrease our fight or flight response by placing our focus outside of ourselves, just not thinking in our brains like we do, and we tend to focus in the physical world more than our personal thoughts when we listen to that. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, and here's some cool ass data that I found if you're interested. And moving on. Another study I found, which I will not read because it's kind of it's basically that they worked on how stress itself affects sleeping behavior and REM sleep specifically. So this was made in 2019 by Matthew Wart, also in England. And here's some data stuff on that. So basically this study was a 9-week study on a group of mice. I don't know how many, they didn't specify. And basically forced them to sleep in various cages that had stress stimuli. So for example, one cage might have had sawdust. One other cage might have water. Another one might have a smell of a predator in their bedding. Or another very dominant mice. Another one might have had a cage that just moved at random, or one literally was just stuck in the confined trapped while also being in the cage, and it's made them sleep daily in that hellhole. And as the days progressed, they identified signs of depression and anxiety amongst other medical conditions in the mice. They also learned that there was an increase in the amount and strength for REM sleep, so although the other stages remained the same. So yeah. And because of this study, they learned that REM sleep can be considered an indicator when someone is suffering through extreme stress-related issues. Yeah. Another study, wow, that does, basically they were finding out how durable people are in the face of sleeping through various annoying background noises. And this is what mentions stuff about the spindles. Yeah. This, it's in 2010, so it's a little bit outdated, but still pretty cool. More data stuff. Okay, so they did a study on 12 individuals from ages around 26 to 7 for 3 nights. And the first night was very peaceful. They had a lot of sleep, while the other nights were just noisy as frick. And they used a variety of artificial noises. For example, they used road and air traffic, telephone ringing, machine noises, hospital sounds, other things I don't remember. And each sound lasted for roughly 30 seconds on loop. And what the scientists were scanning for while they were sleeping were the amount of spindles each person went through during their sleep. So yeah, they gathered that on the first night. And it was very interesting. And the scientists learned that those with the highest spindle rates, so roughly like 7 to 8 spindles on the first night, had a higher tolerance to annoying sounds on the following noisy nights. So yeah, interesting. It basically also helped us understand why seniors in general have a terrible time with annoying sounds. And because of that, according to the National Institute of Health, spindle rates diminish with age, and they diminish completely around the ages of 60 to 80 years. So yeah, interesting. Here's some also cool data stuff if you're interested that came from the study. Yeah, moving on. So yeah, and now knowing all that, it got me thinking, wow, sound is just whack when it's affecting our body, really. And it seems like it's super beneficial, but it also seems like it could be super harmful as well. And since most of this so far, what I'm talking about is related to noise itself causing stress, and then, I don't know, I just started wondering, how are we using sound to combat sound, and which came to this question: what is noise pollution? So yeah, what is noise pollution? I personally never heard of this being an issue outside of those working in construction or people who might need to lay off their earbuds a bit and lower the volume, but from the research I did, it's a pretty big issue. According to this Environmental Pollution Centers, this is a general definition for noise pollution. So regular exposure to elevated sound levels that may lead to adverse effects in human or other living organisms, and exposure for more than 8 hours to a constant noise beyond 65 decibels may be hazardous. So that's the general definition for noise pollution. And yeah, I also found this handy dandy cool website that talks more about noise pollution. It's very kind of sad, actually. It talks about the worst cities, basically, with noise pollution in 2017. And so according to this, I'm going to read it off. With the help of the World Health Organization and SINTEF, which is basically like off-world southern region something, I can't remember. They did a study, which I looked into, and it seems legit. It's also in 2017. They did a research on 50 cities worldwide about noise pollution, and they created, so thing I forgot to mention, Mimi is a hearing aid technological company, and they created this digital hearing app for users, around 200,000 of the users, to help analyze the noise pollution of where they were living at. And they got 200,000 of them to give them their data, and they found, according to the World Economic Forum, that the Mimi study found that the average city dweller has a hearing loss equivalent to 10 to 20 years older than their actual age. And that's kind of fucked up. And Delhi was noted to have the worst noise pollution worldwide. And here's a little cool data. Delhi having an average hearing loss of 19.34 above actual age. Wow. Yeah, interesting. They also had one for Portland as well, if you're super interested, which isn't that bad considerably. They said that for Portland, we are the 8th quietest city worldwide, with just having for average 11.81 above normal age for hearing loss. So yeah. Wow. Isn't that cool? I'm just flipping through things. Yeah. What's also more daunting of fact when you understand that, according to the World Health Organization, at least in 2017, 336 million people worldwide have hearing loss, 32 million being children. And when you understand the nature of how a person gets hearing loss, that I've put off this really interesting slide, and when they, how a person gets hearing loss and when they might be diagnosed with it, it's just very terrible. Yeah. And if that's not enough, I also found a study in 2017 that discovered how fish are being affected by noise pollution. I won't really go into much detail about it since, but according to this article, scientists have discovered that sea bass in Newcastle were more stressed out, having difficulty running away, for predators more prone to dying, and just having a higher difficulty finding their way back home because of loud drilling, piling noises from offshore construction just vibrating through ocean floors. And different sounds gave various reactions to fish. The most detrimental one was piling, which is basically just drilling a giant hole in the ground to help stabilize buildings, and it just being instantly random when it would just happen and spike through the water, and immediately just at a loud volume, unlike drilling. So yeah, interesting. It also affects other things, not just humans. Yeah, reflection time. So what I was thinking while I was gathering all this information and what I thought out of it, and it's basically just grown more concern for me while making this entire slideshow. So basically, we as a society, I feel like, don't really know much about sleep, because I sure didn't, and there's just not a lot of actual information about it for the public in general, and I feel like because of that, we don't necessarily care about sleep or the penalties of what might happen if we don't get enough, or we just ignore our sleeping behavior. And there's also the issue of this mainly, I think, being a social mindset of ours to not put so much importance about sleep in general, because we are a very hardworking and, as of today, a very distracting society, where we are continuously worrying over looming issues and obstacles like climate change or technology issues, economic warfare, other things. I don't know. It's easy to say that issues like that are they're more important than understanding sleeping behavior and why are we so tired in the first place. We created this mindset as a society with all that in mind, maybe other things being into play, where we are okay with putting sleep on the back burner. We are uncomfortable going to bed when it's necessary for us to function day to day, because we have more important things to do with our time, or we could just sleep in later when we can. It's a lot bigger of an issue than I realized when first going into this assignment, and I'm not really sure how we can possibly fix it. But what I do know, at least, is that the public should be more aware of what is happening with our sleep, and just knowing more about sleep, how it's affecting us, and why do we react this way about sleep in the first place. Yeah. All that moody stuff aside, how to help if you wanna. That's interesting, right? Here are some cool ways that you can help if you so choose to. Other things. Fund research. I looked a little bit into it, but I'm sure there's more. Here's some cool places to put your money in if you want this to continue. So, Sleep Research Society, when I looked into it, it pretty much helps educate people to work in sleeping fields, which is nice. And National Sleep Foundation supports researchers and online reports in the field. And Project Sleep, which helps research for treatments and sleeping issues, which I find a lot of people would be into. Another thing you could do to help is send your data if you use sound machine apps or ASMR apps, with your consent, of course, because they're just not, despite this there being a lot of studies and everything, this is still considered as a new discovery. The furthest documentary I could find history-wise about sleep was in the 1950s, and the guy itself wasn't even really talking about sleep. He was just a crazy nut who was into psychology. And yeah, anything helps if you're okay with it. And also another thing is that you can do your own study. I did mine. I did it for fun, kind of. So if you're interested, do it. Anything else. Also, spread the awareness. If you remember anything from this presentation, please tell people about it. Spread the information or not. Yeah. And that's about it. Thank you for listening to my very long presentation. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.